Hello and welcome to today's webinar, Top 5 Reasons Why You Need Polarion Requirements, brought to you by Polarion Software. Your speaker today will be Yuji Volek, Vice President of Product Management for Polarion Software.
Thank you, Jar, for the introduction. Thank you all for joining us today. The agenda for today, I'll very briefly introduce Polarion Software. Then we'll go through today's problems, today's issues you might face in your software requirements management, and about tomorrow's trends. And most of the time we will spend anyway on discussing the top 5 reasons why you should consider Polarion requirements as a modern requirements management solution for your project. And at the end, we'll have plenty of time to go through your questions. So anytime you think something is unclear, just please note it. Use the Q&A panel as was already suggested by Jared, and I will answer them at the end of my presentation. So for those who do not know Polarion, very briefly, we have been founded in 2004 with quite disruptive vision of 100% browser-based application lifecycle management, requirements management, and quality assurance solution. And since the beginning, we are focusing on unlocking the synergies between different teams by providing a unified repository for all the artifacts, requirements, tests, development tasks, which enables the full traceability, real-time collaboration, in quite intuitive user interface that our customers are reporting a very nice feedback to us. Some numbers. We have more than 250 deployments in Fortune 1000 customers, over 2.5 million of users of Polarion solutions. All our products, Polarion requirements, ALM QA, are highly flexible. This is supported by our App Store, our extension site with more than 200 extensions. With many of them were contributed not by us, but by our partners, but also by our customers. We have a large community of more than 5,000 registered members. From the customer point of view, we focus a lot on system engineering, on embedded software development. Most of our customers are coming from the companies like CNH or Olympus here, Phonak, Sirona, medical, automotive, system engineering companies, but we have also companies from the pure software engineering like Red Hat or like NetSuite. So really very different set of customers. So the challenges for today's software engineering, why we think you should consider new modern requirements management solution. First one is we are a software company. We all face these issues as well. We are forced to release more frequently. And it's not just Polarion. We see this very common, that the market is needing, or is asking for more rapid release cycle. At the same time, there's an increasing need for customization. No matter if you speak about the car manufacturers or even medical industries, but also pure software engineering, we see, that the products need to be fine-tuned for very diverse set of customer needs. And in the same time, bigger complexity of the projects. 100 million lines of code just for multimedia system in a current S-Class Mercedes-Benz. This is the size of the projects that were known more for space shuttle missiles some time ago, not for car ECUs, but the same for mobile apps, whatever software project we imagine. And release more frequently, more variants, with bigger complexity, but at the same time, we see that customers do not tolerate any issues with a product quality. They simply expect the software to be, as good as any kind of the hardware products. They don't differentiate between a coffee machine and a software application. They simply expect, those applications to be bug-free. All of that, has a direct impact to the software development cycle, where we believe it makes total sense to start with a proper requirements management process. And today, we would like to demonstrate how Polarion Requirement Solution helps our customers with a requirements management process. Our solution, today we speak about top 5 pillars, top 5 reasons why to consider Polarion. I will go through each of them: secure collaboration, forensic traceability, excellent user experience, requirements reuse, and also the update to a full ALM is a very important driver for Polarion. So let's start with collaboration. If you would browse or check any other of our competitors, you will all see that they all promise fully featured collaboration. It's very modern, to have the solution all web-based. We were pioneering this approach 10 years ago. This definitely helps with a user adoption of the technology. I just recently checked the statistics that the market adoption of the latest iOS operating system on the latest iPhone was 85%. With Polarion, our statistics says that 84% of our customers are running the latest version of our system. The web-based, it enables the easy rollout, but also the real-time access collaboration. But what we do different, what we think it's really more unique, is that we bring security into the collaboration. And when we speak about secure collaboration, it's not the same as just the permissions, or more, there are 2 primary drivers why our customers have the permissions. One is, of course, because they might like to keep the data private, but it's even more important that they want to ensure that the information can be exposed or modified at the right time. And this goes beyond a standard permissions or ACL settings. I'll try to show you and demonstrate, what would be considered by secure collaboration. For example, here we see a typical workflow for a live document. Live document is a unique concept of Polarion that I'll speak later about. And it's a container. It's a document that contains the software requirement specification, for example. When you create it, it's in the status draft. Then you might push it for the review. From review, it could be marked as reviewed, then approved, completed. And you can really model all this collaboration with Polarion. So, when I create a document, it will be in the status in review. I can push it to the review process, and document can be marked as reviewed only if all the invited stakeholders has really performed the review. And so once the review is done and signed by all the stakeholders, I can push the document into the reviewed state. So you can really model the full document workflow over your process, and you cannot design just the workflow of a document, but also the individual requirements, which I will share later as well. The collaboration should be secure, but at the same time, we understand that the process is as good as people follow the process in the technology. So we don't want just to make it rigid, make it really formal. We want to make sure that everyone can really collaborate in this secure environment. And for that, we also understand that it's not just about using Polarion, but it is also how Polarion requirements integrate with the industry tools like Microsoft Word. We see that, many of our customers are simply used to gather the initial requirements as a Microsoft Word or Excel documents, and we have really very unique technology to import all of them into Polarion as a live document that looks and edit very similar to original imported document. But at the end, we also let the external users, customers, external stakeholders to export a document back to Office document, modify it offline, and import the changes back. So we don't just allow them to use Polarion in a very secure environment, but the same secure collaboration applies for using the external tools such as Microsoft Word or Excel. Second, forensic traceability. Before we dive deep into the traceability, I see a lot of confusion about traceability on the market. Many of our competitors, they just think that traceability is all about linking. So first, let me just define what do we consider by traceability. So traceability refers to the completeness of the information about every step in the supply chain. Traceability is not just about the static links. It's really to chronologically relate uniquely identifiable entities in a way that they are verifiable. And there are a couple of, let's say, key elements of traceability. The first one is accountability. I mean, whenever we speak about the supply chain, about the process, you need to understand who, what, and when of any change. Every single change must be identifiable and accountable. We ensure that by the fact that all the artifacts are stored in the version control repository. Every modification produces a global, unique, identifiable revision linked with the username and password. So anything you change in Polarion is electronically signed as expected by FDA CFR 21 Part 11 for medical industries, for example. So that's the accountability. The second part of traceability is the verification. So you need to provide an evidence that the requirements have been approved, implemented, and verified. It's not enough just to show a link that there is a requirement that is linked with a test case. And you need really to ensure that this test case was also executed and it passes. And you really need to deliver this information, this traceability information, at the end to the auditors. With Polarion, I mean, first you can design all those artifacts in the single repository, and you can semantically link them and check the consistency that, for example, the design requirements, the functional requirements are linked to the business requirements with the right role. We support the multi-project management, so you can link across the projects. You can navigate around any level of hierarchy. And you can prove that all the requirements have been verified in time of release, not after. We bring a unique technology called Time Machine that any of the report, any of the query, any of the search, or any of the item can be opened exactly as it was any moment in the history. Source code traceability, this goes a little bit far from the original concept of requirements management, but as much as it's important to link the requirements and test cases for verification, it's also important that there is a trace from the requirement down to the source code. This is very much requested by different standards like DO178B here. And with Polarion, we ensure that because, I mean, the source code can be stored in the same secure repositories, but we also support external repositories. And you can control that every single change must be linked to a valid change request that actually describes the change of a requirement. This was quite passive approach that we were speaking about being accountable, about reporting a change, about verifying every step of a process. But the traceability could also help actively in improving the overall quality. You can study and analyze the impact of a change before the change actually occurs. You can embrace the change. How does Polarion help to process all the changes? So if you need to ensure that all the relevant artifacts are updated, if I modify the business requirements, I need to ensure that all the related functional requirements or design items have been modified. I need to help the people what needs to be reviewed. We help that by so-called suspect link propagation. So whenever I change the requirement, all the related artifacts become suspected. This information is fully searchable. I can very easily review what are the software requirements affected by the change of the system requirement. And all of that is versioned as any other artifact in Polarion. User experience. I'll still follow up the traceability story a bit. There are many other tools that claim to manage the traceability that could measure the coverage between business and functional requirements, functional and test cases. But the thing is that we have also seen many customers who were pointing us to their specification in Microsoft Word, and they were saying that the individual chapters in the Word documents are the actual requirements. So you can have an excellent coverage. You can say that this chapter of a Word document is being tested by following test cases. But if the requirements are really large, it's still bad because you still don't know how to control a change. If I change chapter in a document, how do I know that it was properly maintained? How do I know that all the test cases have been updated? You need to make sure that every piece of the information is uniquely identifiable and to prevent unstructured documents. And that's easy to say, and that's a common goal of all the requirements management solution to ensure that every single paragraph is identifiable and versioned. But to ensure that, you really need to provide a very easy to use and intuitive interface. And it also ensure that the actual import procedure is easy enough for the people either to enter the data into the system, to write the requirements, or to import them from the legacy documents like Word and Excel. If you spend a lot of time on making this process seamless, you can just take your existing documents and we have a rule-based system where I define which paragraphs should be marked as requirements, which bullet list items needs to be imported as requirements from Word or Excel. And based on these sophisticated rules, we parse and identify requirements which they appear in Polarion as imported. But it's not just documents. We have met a lot of people who are really on the transition from the legacy old-fashioned document-like requirements management into more like item-based, use case-centric options. But we still believe that a document concept, an easy-to-use interface where I can easily, as a product manager, for example, enter new requirements into the system just by typing them as I was used into Word, is really the preferred way for business analysts, product managers. But, for example, the project managers, they'll value more the structure interface. And we call it user-centric UI options. So we provide the unified data repository, the same data management with different views for different people. So if I am a project manager, I can access the same requirement specification in a table view. And if I am the business analyst, I can enter my requirements in this very intuitive and easy-to-use interface. And we go even one step further. We don't just think about the Polarion data, but we also need to integrate the external tools such as UML solutions or system modeling solution. Sometimes even for the software, is it highly beneficial if you can import the MATLAB Simulink or UML models directly into Polarion. Why? It's not because you would like to simulate the modeling capabilities in Polarion, but it's again about the impact analysis. Very often I can study the possible impact of a change just by consulting the model as it looks in a Polarion document interface. And if needed, I can drill down and open a respective model in a desktop client. So I can click on the model and load it in the Enterprise Architect, for example, or MATLAB Simulink, and study the details if I need. But if I am a UML modeler, I can publish this information to Polarion and make it part of a requirement specification, so it's part of the impact analysis process. I'm always very proud when I see our price list that we are, I think, the only requirements management and ALM vendor that have in the price list a rollout package that is just there for 4 or 8 days, depending on the solution. So in our price list, we have a rollout package for 4 days for requirements management and 8 days for ALM. This is very unique. And we consider that as a key advantage. We, of course, have a lot of enterprise customers who spend more time on the actual rollout. What we mean by this easy implementation is that we support so-called evolution versus revolution. We promise you that, that you can easily deploy Polarion, spend 4 or 5 days on initial training, initial configuration, and you can start using Polarion and improve your process. And as you use Polarion, you can still start configuring the workflows, start configuring the permission schema, start configuring your electronic signature process. You can adjust all of that as you go, as you use Polarion. And it all speaks about easy installation, as I mentioned at the beginning, 84% on the current major version. Easy training. Many of our customers report, that they have been not trained and the customer satisfaction is very high. And the ability to adjust the configuration, not just by our services, but by the customers themselves. All this customization and flexibility, this is also something that enhances the user experience highly, because the system is not enforcing any specific methodology, but can be adjusted to the process that the customers are using. If you speak about user experience, I would say that one of the key problems for users, or key problems that really allows makes the user experience bad is not optimal performance and scalability. If we have collected a great quotes and confirmation by our customers how much we scale, how big enterprise customers we support with thousands of users all around the globe. And this is being supported by our own technology. We have a built-in clustering solution. We have a multi-project management, so you can set up any number of projects, isolated projects or interconnected projects, and also multi-repository setup, which all cover requirements for the sake of this presentation, but also other entities. So if you have really a distributed team, you can easily support all the teams that are located around the globe. The fourth one, requirements reuse. We have checked statistics, and we have seen that more than 70% of the requirements are being reused between the different projects, between the different components. And it's important to ask why, what kind of requirements, what kind of projects we speak about. I have mentioned 3 of them here: regulatory requirements, new versions of your projects, and variants, and let's go through each of them. So let's start with regulatory requirements. For regulatory requirements, we provide technology called the derived documents. So just imagine a situation that you have the safety requirement specification. You have different versions. Each year there is a new version published, and you need to distribute the copy around your project, around your product development. And by distribution, we just don't mean that you can copy or make the copy read-only in all the projects. The most important thing about our requirements is that they are rich, that you can track additional metadata with the requirements, such as, ownership, estimation data, functional safety categorization in the scope of my project. So it's not just the text, it's not just the copy of the requirement, it's all the metadata that you need to track within your specification. So the first goal is that I need to share a specific version of my regulatory specification into a project. And then when the new version is published, I can publish the other version to the other products, and I can really distribute the version. So anytime in the future, I can decide that I will update, for example, the specification here from version 3.3 into version 3.4, and I will not lose the meta information changes I did to my specification. So when I consider, a requirement to be assigned to Jiří Valek with the functional safety level high, if this requirement has been not modified and updated to the latest version of my specification, I'll still have my metadata untouched. If it will be changed, of course, I will have all those suspect link notifications so I can really see which were the actual changes to my specification. This helps me really to distribute the updates as necessary, as needed, and in the same time track the additional properties with each individual copy of the regulatory specification. The second reason for reusing requirements is simply versioning. You might work on different versions of your software projects in parallel, and there is a common solution for that called branching. We all know, that software engineers branch the code. The branching requirements is slightly different task. We did our research, and we clearly see a difference in branching code and requirements. And that's why we also provide a different technology called live branches. What the live branches allows you actually to take your specification and create a branch. If you create a branch, you don't copy anything, you don't duplicate anything. You just have links to the original versions. That's why we call it live. Live means that if I change the requirement in a master specification, the change might get automatically propagated into the branch. I can freeze that. I can make the reference frozen. So in that term, I refer to a particular revision of my requirement. So I can have live or frozen branches. And this eliminates the risk of unsynchronized changes caused by copy and paste application. You can, of course, compare the branches. You can apply a filter and say that for this project, I will just branch all the requirements that are specific to a given category or that are of a given severity. So I can do all of that and compare it in a very nice visual interface. We also see, that for some very complex software projects, the branching doesn't scale enough. We have customers who have more than 50 different variants of their products that they need really to manage in parallel. And here where our customers start speaking about the product line engineering or software product line engineering, and they start considering how to more effectively reuse or manage the different variants of their systems. Here you see the evolution of the variance management as we have seen on the market. We are first approached when the customers have the independent products. They use different products for different variants. The teams are not using the standardized infrastructure. And we see a clear benefit of just deploying Polarion to standardized infrastructure or just to allow the platform reuse. This means if I have a document that contains a shared components that I can easily distribute over my other projects. But if you are the one who needs more complex interface, if the number of your variants is getting higher, 10 to 40 to 100 different variants, we provide a technology called Polarion Variants that will allow you for more controlled variance management of your product line. Polarion for product line engineering is really taking the advantage of the commonalities, but we also have a clear understanding about variability. So we define the feature model, we let you define the features of your variant, and it allows you also to strategically plan the software use. There is a dedicated webinar, dedicated presentation and white paper on our solution for variance management. It goes beyond the scope of this presentation. But if you are interested in this technology, definitely search our web, and you will find enough information on our website. Last but not least, the reason to consider Polarion is our approach for unified ALM and unified PLM solution. Polarion provides a very effective licensing. Whatever customer we have, we always deploy so-called unified Polarion server. This means unified data repository, the single source solution on the server side, and then we distribute the assigned products to different users. So you can start using just Polarion requirements today for requirements management, reuse and branch management. Of course, you can manage all the different KPIs and metrics around your requirements. And if tomorrow you will start using the Polarion QA for quality assurance, the people could speak easily together. It's the same collaboration framework. So if I am a QA analyst, I can easily access the requirements in the same front end, in the same look and feel, in the same interface. If I have a question, I will ask the requirements engineer, and he will see that instantly in this environment. If the requirement is being changed by the business analyst, this change is instantly visible for a test lead, for a test manager, so they can process the change immediately. We also extend that for full ALM, for if you need to connect your software development team to your requirements, You just assigned people with different licenses, and they can all access the same web-based unified Polarion server. Probably you checked our news already that we have announced the acquisition of Polarion by Siemens that will be closed early next year. But even before the acquisition, we have been already working actively with Siemens Teamcenter team to enable ALM teams to collaborate closely with the PLM teams. We see that for PLM, the software becomes the very critical piece where the innovation happens. I mean, most of the customers report that today's most of the innovation happens on the software part. And the integration already exists that helps you to integrate the software management through the Polarion into the full PLM landscape. So you have the full traceability, not just from a requirement to a source code or to the change in the build, but you have also the traceability up to bill of materials, to a system change request linked in your PLM system, which at the end expand the collaboration, real-time and secured. So we don't speak just about the collaboration inside the requirements management team, but the overall collaboration across the full organization. It's the one-click away traceability. So just in one click, I can access the related user story, the related bill of material, and all in a web interface. It also embraces the multi-role environment where we see that more and more people are actually wearing different hats. You might be a product owner in the project A and a task lead in the project B, and this unified environment just enhance and embrace such collaboration. So at the end, 5 different reasons why to consider Polarion requirements: secure collaboration, forensic traceability, excellent user experience, reuse management, and the possible update to full ALM and PLM solutions. That's the power of Polarion. Let me go through your questions now. Okay, so the first question is, do you support the agile requirements management? As I said, I mean, all the Polarion solutions are very neutral, speaking about the process methodology. We have customers who do pure agile Scrum software projects. We have customers who are very waterfall-like. We believe that for agile projects, the documentation should not happen just in user stories. Especially for enterprise agile, the user stories describes just the work increments, they describe the changes, but after a year or two, you cannot really gather the full picture by studying the user stories because the stories can contradict each other. So we recommend a best practice of supporting the user stories by component specifications, which help you manage the enterprise projects more, which doesn't mean that those component specification needs to be written in advance. It's similar like a test first scenario. So in the past, the testing procedures were recorded and executed after the implementation. Today, the testing scenarios are written first. The same with requirements. You don't really force to write them up front. You can even write them afterwards, just to ensure that the next time you implement something, you don't break anything, you make it consistent. And there is a difference between requirement and a test case here, why we recommend to support both. If you are interested more about Agile, again, have a look on our website, search for Enterprise Agile. You'll find some nice webinars that speaks about the Agile requirements management. Other question, do you support system and UML modeling? We think that model-based software system engineering is becoming more popular. We have seen a little decline of UML modeling, let's say 8 years ago. Today, I mean, it becomes more and more important again. We position Polarion requirements more to manage the textual requirements, and that could be let's say, enhanced by the visual requirements. We do support so-called embedded diagramming solution. It's something like if you would have Microsoft Visio online, so you can draw the same kind of the diagrams online, but it's not a fully featured modeling solution. Our approach for modeling is that we tightly integrate with leading modeling solutions, both for software and system modeling, and we allow the people who do UML modeling again to synchronize the UML models with Polarion, so I can easily link UML elements with the software requirements, and as I've shown you, I can also publish the actual UML model into Polarion as a visual representation. So if I need to perform an impact analysis, I can do it without opening the actual model. You said you support electronic signatures. Are you certified by FDA? FDA doesn't certify the tools like Polarion. We've passed some independent audits for different customers in respect to how do we support the, if I remember correctly, FDA CFR 21 Part 11 that speaks about the electronic signatures. We passed those certifications very nicely. So yes, we do support electronic signatures, but we haven't been certified by the FDA, though the process itself was audited in a way how we have supported this particular standard. It's both about the actual support of the signatures inside of our technology, and it's also supported by the actual storage itself, that everything you store in Polarion is being versioned, and for every modification, a version restore record is generated. It means that this also includes the configuration files, which is very important for quality audits. So we don't version just the data, but also the process configuration. When do you synchronize requirements between development and business analysts? We don't actually synchronize any of the requirements. We don't really, our approach is not really about synchronizing data between different departments. I mean, if depends on the technology. We have connectors to other systems, so you can integrate Polarion requirements with other tools like HPQC, Atlassian Jira, for example, as well. So we have connectors to other systems, and I mean, we provide a standalone package for software requirements engineering, but we also provide this unified collaboration platform. So I don't know, I mean, about which scenario do you speak about? I can clarify both. So if you speak about integration with other tools like Jira, for example, I mean, this is really event-based. So depending on the status of your requirements or specification, you can push the requirements into the development team in the right time again. So I can ensure that the requirements get visible in those third-party tools when they get approved in Polarion. Then whenever there is let's say, the comment on the third-party side, I can push this information back into Polarion. But this is an integration. This is really the synchronization, which doesn't really, let's say, it's not as smooth as if you would compare our unified collaboration approach when the development team would use the Polarion products and the requirements managers or requirements engineers would use Polarion requirements. Because in that time, the requirements are not being synchronized. They are not being copied. They are not even just linked through the OSLC, even though we support OSLC. It's really the same copy of the requirement is being shared between the business analyst, between the developer, between a QA manager, so they really share the information. I see you mentioned VectorCast for integration. Do you integrate with Parasoft or LDRA? If you would go to our website, we have a site called Polarion Extensions, where we show or where we publish all the integrations with other partners. LDRA is definitely supported. I think also Parasoft is supported as well. So yes, we do support VectorCast, Parasoft, and LDRA. This is more on the QA side, which I think is very important to link the requirements and testing tools. If you have this question, we discuss it with analysts. So what we see is that our customers do not rely on one single tool for test automation or one single testing tools. So we are much more open for integration if you speak about the testing tools. So that's why we really integrate all those solutions for hardware in the loop testing of the software components, or also for performance testing of a pure software. So we have many different integrations for testing tools and software engineering tools. If you go to extensions.polarion.com, you can search all of them, or please contact us and we can definitely clarify the scope of the integration. But all of these three, VectorCast, Parasoft, and LDRA, are supported as far as I know. If I link requirements with a dependency on another requirements, can I see an overview of requirements that need reviewing again because of one change? You can fully search for any kind of the links. I was speaking about the suspect links. So the suspect link controls, for example, if you change something, all those linked items can become suspected. I sometimes consider this as a virus that needs a little bit more control. So by default, you can really automatically spread this suspects like across all the changed artifacts. But you can also effectively combine the suspect linking with workflow conditions. So whenever I modify, when I approve a requirement, it becomes read-only. That's again part of our secure collaboration. If I need to modify a requirement, I need to reopen it. If I call this workflow action reopen, it will automatically trigger so-called workflow functions, which might mark all those dependency links as suspected. But it will not mark, for example, the relates to requirements as suspected. So through the workflow automation, I can have a more granular control about the suspect propagation. Again, if you would need more help here, I strongly recommend you to contact our support team or professional services that can demonstrate it better to you how this concept works. This was the last question for today. I'm very happy about all the questions. If there is something in your mind that you would need to ask later today, please contact us, contact our support or any of the sales representatives if you know already. They will be more than happy to answer those questions offline. Thank you once again.
All right, thank you very much for that, Yuji. I appreciate all of your time in answering all those questions today. And thank you to everyone for joining us today to learn more about Polarion software and the top 5 reasons why you need Polarion requirements.